Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business strategist and startup expert, and I spend a lot of my time in conversation with practitioners, coaches, and healers about the behind the scenes of their businesses. What I started noticing is that some of the most honest, important conversations about building a practice were happening quietly, one-on-one, behind the scenes, and often in isolation. Most practitioners are incredibly skilled at the work they do with their clients, but very few of us were ever taught or trained in how to build a successful startup business. And suddenly we've been left to figure it out on our own. This podcast exists to bring those conversations forward, the dreams, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, the recalibrations, and the messy middle. My hope is that by normalizing these conversations, we can soften the stigma, feel less alone, and start closing the gaps together. Today's guest is Christine McFarlane-Olsen. Christine is a mom of 8, grandmother to 3, living in Auckland, New Zealand. She grew up in dysfunction and abuse, living in reactive trauma cycles most of her life. Now she's a transformative life coach, working from her experience to help women overcome their adversities. She's a 5-time best-selling author and has been featured in international press releases as a podcast guest and has had billboard features in Times. Christine, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for showing up and having this conversation with me today.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I'm really honored to be here and be part of this peer conversation.
Before we look behind the scenes today, can you share with us a little bit more about the work that you do?
So I'm a trauma-based coach. I work with women, a lot of them who have had childhood abuse, relationship dysfunctions, and loss. Illness is another one that sets a lot of my clients up for a lot of adversity. So my job is to help them work on their limiting beliefs and set their dream life up.
Do you generally work with people one-on-one?
I started in group work and I'm heading towards one-to-one work actively now.
Is there a reason for that? Like a specific reason?
I'd like to help women who are actually ready. So when I started my journey, it was after my husband's passing, and I came to a place where I couldn't just wallow in the pain anymore. I had to get up, and I had no idea how to do that or where to go or who I needed to speak to. And I think there is a large group of women who are missed in the over 50 age group that I work with.
The clients that you have now or that you've had in the past, where do you tend to initially connect with them and start building and nurturing those relationships before they become clients?
So what I did was in my own personal journey, there were community groups that I reached out to and who were supportive to me. So I returned to those groups and started volunteering and working within those spaces. And then once I received my certification for life coaching, I was able to run regular workshops through them.
When you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what goals do you have for your work and for your business? You kind of already mentioned one, to shift more one-on-one. What else? What else are you working on now?
I've just begun working on another project to write another book. I've also got plans for my own book. So currently the books that I've written have been collaborations with other women. And I'm just starting to pen my own book, which is quite exciting. And I have an event that I'll be attending in Chicago in September this year.
Is part of your goal for book writing, is that using it as an avenue for expanding your reach, getting more visibility, which ultimately would bring in ideally more clients to your ecosystem?
Yes, my thoughts behind that were, one, I really loved writing. I thought I'd just give it a go. It was something I'd never done. I didn't have any formal training, and we just did a couple of workshops on it to give us the basics. And then we wrote our story, and I found it made me feel really strong to share that story, that part of myself, the difficulties and the change required to shift yourself from that position and pretty much completely change your life. Just a possibility. to share that story and possibly impact other women who could be in despair, feeling lost. I always found those stories myself very helpful when I was in it. So to be in a position where I can possibly be that for someone else, I just love it. I think it's very powerful.
Totally. When you think of growing the ecosystem to your work, reaching more women, what do you think that you need to do to get there? Do you feel like you're guessing, or do you feel like you have a pretty good idea of the action that you need to take?
Yes, I think I have a good idea. I've been working with a coach for the last couple of years. And when I first joined, everything was just going right over my head. Right? They were talking business plans and funnels. And I was like, what language are you talking? I felt so out of my depth. And now that I've been in for a couple of years and I'm still going, I'm like, wow, that makes sense now. It's not scary. So I have a little mantra that I have, which is just keep going, just keep getting better. And it was something that was my mantra right from the start, was just keep going, don't stop. I couldn't go back to anything. There was nothing left. So I had to keep stepping forward, and that served me really well.
Yeah, that's a great one. Most of us, and you and I talked about this already before we started today. It's like so often we're just so focused on helping others. We're so focused on the work and helping others when we start off on this journey that even if it's slightly conscious, like, yeah, I'm going to start a business, it's often not like, I'm starting a business. I'm about to, start entrepreneurship. I know exactly what it's going to take. I feel ready to da 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 da. We're so devoted to our work and to our mission and to helping people that it is, I guess, that naivety can benefit us,
Agreed.
because I think if we knew how hard it was going to be, it would be very, very hard to go in it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and what you say, and using that mantra to keep going, it is really important. One of the things that I've learned on my path of entrepreneurship, now being a startup expert and a business strategist, is that I've talked about this on a few episodes in this podcast series. Also, my background as a transformational coach and all of my training, I have so many trainings in this work. Entrepreneurship is one of the fastest tracks of evolution and transformation, like spiritual, and people aren't talking about it enough. And so for those of us who have already committed to spiritual evolution and transformation through the work that we're doing, then we add on entrepreneurship. It's actually like a double whammy of commitment to transformation and riding the speedway through the journey. And part of why that is, part of the fundamentals, the fundamental operations of that is that evolution and transformation is always showing up in beginnership to something that you don't know how to do and working through that and producing results that you didn't know that you could produce, or if you could produce them. That's fundamental to transformation. So we've committed to it already in our works, in our life path, in our own personal life. Then we're adding on entrepreneurship, and your mantra is like a perfect articulation of the fundamental journey, which is you're going to show up in beginnership over and over again. You're going to show up out of your comfort zone in a domain set, taking on a skill or trying to produce a result that you don't know if you're going to be able to produce. Then you're going to get coaches, you're going to seek out information, you're going to do whatever you can to gain the competency to produce that result. That is like fuel for the fire of transformation and evolution.
Absolutely. I think for me, that one of the biggest challenges is to constantly take action, take the new action required. So I'm always doubling up on my regulation practice, and it's become so important. Like at one time it was important for my healing, and now it's important for me to continue growing and doing my work. because it's still new. You're always adding the next thing that you need to do, which you've never done before.
Totally. And it's going to continue to ebb and flow. This is my area of expertise, and I still get into spaces where I'm in beginnership. So it's not to say that there's ever a point where we don't do that. Recently, the past few days, I've had to do similar to what you were just saying, really touch back in with my nervous system and my regulation. I skipped a cycle, which is not common for me. I was getting an eczema flare up, and which that's also not common for me. So I was like, wait a second, I'm very stressed. Like, I'm very stressed. I'm just kind of normalizing this, but my body is starting to speak to me, and I need to slow down. I need to incorporate other things. I need to make sure that I'm bringing my tools into my daily life, into my work life. What is it? I have to deploy the tools. I've been doing this for so long. You would think by now that I was so used to it, and I am, but it still comes up. I still have to kind of, like you said, double down on my stuff, even where it'd be easy for me to say, like, I already have all of that stuff. What's the word I would say? Playing. All that stuff is just like already so ingrained in me. I'm doing all that stuff all the time. But no, like, everything changes. Business stuff shifts and changes and does cause me stress. It still does. It's sneaky. I don't always realize it, but certain things will come up, and I've had to double down, especially the past few days, being like, are you breathing? When you're having these thoughts, and deploying my tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was something astrological happening. I've spoken to a few people who really did some deep work this weekend just past, because I sure did too. It was really beautiful though. I ended up being in a beautiful location, and was very cultural to me, and so it really connected and landed so beautifully. I was very blessed.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because that's also part of it too, which is like, there's always stuff at play. This is a trying time. This is a really hard time. It's a hard time to be alive for anyone. It's a hard time to be alive for those of us who have, answered the call to be of service, to be way showers, to be this population of people who have decided to wake up and be on our own paths to mastery in whatever our unique kind of craft of healing work, if you will, we are in, and be integrated in the real world. Not only integrated in the real world, but also entrepreneurship and solopreneurship. We've already talked about this. It is really, really hard. Like, this is a real thing that needs to be acknowledged. This is not just one of those things that's like, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to be fine. If I'm just, yes, anyone can do it. Yes, if you stay aligned, you can do it. But it's not just one of those things that will. I know dozens of amazing, brilliant, talented practitioners, coaches, healers who have had to get second jobs, who have had to stop because so many years of the business not working, it's not sustainable. Then it's not sustainable for their health, for their well-being, for their stress levels, for their kids, their family. So it's real. It's really, really, really hard. And it's a lot converging for us at once.
Absolutely. Truly is. Especially with as you say, what's going on in the world.
It's so hard. It's so hard. I want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge anyone that's listening. It's so hard what we're doing. And I think that we have such a high pain tolerance to hardness that sometimes that can be a shadow side for all of our personalities. And I've kind of like called this out a few times on this podcast of making sure that yes, we're capable of doing hard things. Yes, it's possible for us to do that, to do this, but also making sure that we're not just bypassing and let me see how to describe this. There was a point in my journey of entrepreneurship before I did the deep dive into like, why isn't my business working? Why can't I figure this out? Before I became now doing what I do with the startup technicalities, where I was like, I know it's going to be hard. I know it's supposed to be hard, but is this like gone way too far? And now I'm just like tolerating something that is beyond just normal hardness. And am I just have such a high pain tolerance for, unhealthy setups, or me pouring into something where I'm not getting enough back, that I'm just like doing the same thing now with my business, where I'm just constantly pouring, giving, and what's coming back
Overgiving.
Overgiving. you know,
over giving to your business.
over giving to my business, and I'm like not acknowledging it. And so I'm happy this is coming up again because I do think that it's part of our superpower. Absolutely, no doubt. It is part of our superpower. It's part of what makes us uniquely suited to be of service to others, truly, like authentically, truly walking the walk of the work that we do. But I do think that we need to also be sure that we're keeping it in check, or we're checking that over giving. And it's
Absolutely. I'm constantly assessing that because I was brought up in trauma. I'm an expert in trauma. I can carry that. I've carried heavier. And we have to constantly be checking, are we slipping back into that? Have I given enough energy to myself this week? Have I slept enough? Sometimes the basics like, did I take a breath today?
absolutely. And I want to say in this conversation, also for anyone that's listening, it is going to be hard, but it should not be akin to a toxic relationship. And so many of us get there and we don't realize it. So if it's there, take a pause, say, hey, am I doing the same thing, expecting different results? Are those results coming? Do I need to pause and reassess in some of this? Because it's not meant to start looking like a toxic relationship. And I think this is something that, again, it's part of our superpower, but also can sneak up and be a shadow side of the givers that we are.
Absolutely. I find what helps me with that is having that circle of women who are not necessarily exactly where you are, but they're working towards something too. They are looking for bigger pictures. They have their own service that they offer. Sometimes those closest to us are not looking at life how we are. So when we reach out to them for feedback, they give it to us from that perspective and not from the level where we're at. And if we are paying too much attention to that or taking too much of that on board, it helps bring us down a little.
So glad you brought this up because there's so many kind of like layers to that. But to use a metaphor, if you were trying to gain expertise with playing the violin, you wouldn't go ask someone who has never played the violin or doesn't play the violin really for advice to how to reach this next level or solve this problem. But when it comes to business building, for some reason, everyone kind of assumes that they can help and support and have expertise. And it's not to say that we can't get some feedback, but there's actually a right way to do it. And one of the things that can happen so often, like you said, so many people will be like, well, try this, try this, well, try this, try this. You have to be really careful for that, because if someone doesn't, if they don't have expertise on not just business building, startup building. Also, there's a huge difference between just normal business building and running a business versus building a startup. They are like apples and oranges. You really can't compare. So even if someone is a successful employee working for another company, if they haven't successfully built a startup business, their ability to actually give helpful, effective advice is actually going to be really, really limited. So you have to be careful of also getting into that trap and pattern. And so, like you said, making sure that you're reaching out to people that have the experience or the competency to actually help you, whether it's the personal mindset aspect of entrepreneurship or just life path journey. You need to have someone that has a little more competency in that area for them to be able to give you some distinctions that can help push you forward. Or whether it's on the startup business building side, so many people like to offer advice. It can be, I don't know, it can sometimes cause a little more harm than we realize it's causing. So that's a really, really good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, even if it's just to your mindset or your energy, you know, that can shift a lot for you in a day, how you're energetically showing up to, like, even my community groups, if I turned up looking all depressed, they'd be like, you haven't even got yours together, lady.
Totally. What else has felt especially hard or unclear or uncertain on the business building side of your journey with the work that you do?
For me, I understand the feeling states. I can speak to someone all day about what different things you could try, how to set your life plan, how to assess it. For me, I was never brought up to be a business person. I was brought up, my programming is you will be nothing. You will have nothing. You will go nowhere. So everything I do on the business side is all new. I have no idea. I don't have business qualifications. I've never built funnels, web pages, landing pages, all that technical stuff. So hard.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I think that this is maybe like the number one message that I've hoped will come through from doing this podcast, which is reminding people that skill set and competency and expertise is domain specific. So you can be brilliant at the work that you do with your clients. And that brilliance won't always and doesn't transfer over to startup business building expertise.
Yeah. Back office systems.
Yeah. Yes. And it goes both ways. So often people, because that's not, even if they know that somewhere in their body, it's not like articulated really clearly. So many people will get down or lost in feeling like, "Oh, well, if I can't figure the business part out, maybe people will think I'm not good at the work that I do." And so it will contribute to this kind of fake it till you make it thing. And again, if I hope to achieve one thing from this podcast personally, selfishly on my side, it's to like break that down a little bit more, because we all know, because of the work that we do, until you acknowledge something, there's nothing that you can do to shift and change it. And because this has collapsed for so many people, they think, oh no, well, people know that my business isn't successful, then maybe they'll think that I'm not good at the work that I do. So I have to kind of like, not maybe acknowledge that fully, or not be honest or authentic in acknowledging that,
Authentic.
the business side, just, it's not working. I can't pay my bills. I'm more confused than I was a year ago. I'm more broke than I was a year ago. I've hired all these people and nothing's working and all this stuff. Like, that's one of the things that, again, I hope to tease apart that conversation and break that one down, because until we can really take that pressure off of ourselves and like really know, like, yes, I am brilliant and gifted at the work that I do. And I can't figure out the business side. The business side has been incredibly hard. I've tried things, it's not working, whatever version of that is. And we can know confidently and stand in that, know that like, if we aren't doing a great job on the business side for whatever reason, it's no reflection of how good we are or the quality of the work that we can deliver. Like, it's something really important for me. And I hope, and I see for others, because until we can get there, there's too much tightness around the energy of like, oh no, like the business side, just, even what I say in the intro, just so much like guilt and shame and stuff around the business side not working. But if you were not trained in startup building, why would you know? Just like if you've never picked up a violin and been taught to play violin, why would you know how to do all of that business stuff?
And there we are, sitting in the background, beating ourselves up about it, making our own energy low with all the doubts that spin around in our head in the background.
It's so hard. Entrepreneurship and the type of entrepreneurship that we are doing, there are lots of different areas of business. People don't always have these distinctions. You have the startup phase, you have the growth phase, and you have the maturity phase. There's three main phases of businesses. Every business pretty much that you and I are aware of out in the world is growth or maturity phase. If you've ever worked as an employee of a business, unless you've worked for a startup, if you've ever worked as an employee of a business, you were working for a business that was likely in growth maturity phase, but growth phase as well. They've already met product market fit. They've been doing it for years or decades. They know who their clients are. They know the types of products that they want, products or services. There's all of the startup stuff is already done. And now they're onto the growth and maturity phase of business. Those distinctions, those skills do not transfer even into the startup building process, because building a startup is totally different. And so that's another layer to this. There's a lot of people, not only what we talked about, if you've never been taught it, why would you know? But again, there's so much collective pressure for people thinking that like everyone should just know how to build a business. It's so interesting. I wonder why that is. But it's like, even for people, they've been really good employees. They've been successful employees, even at a high level, are like, but I was the number one this in my whole region of this huge global company. And so I thought I could figure out my business. And here I am 2 years in and I can't figure it out. And it's like, because it's completely different skill set, completely different. It's comparing apples to oranges. A business that's already in growth and maturity phase, again, has already nailed all the startup things, the business building foundations, the types of stuff that I work with people on. And it doesn't compare. But again, people aren't talking about this. And so there's so many layers of internalizing that guilt and shame, thinking that we are doing something wrong. I must be doing something wrong. I was so good at doing this, or I was a great employee, or look at all, I should be able to figure this out. And no, there's actually a explosion of entrepreneurship right now in the world, but people have as little distinctions or educations actually on the startup process than ever. And it's causing a lot of harm and a lot of damage right now.
Yeah. And people feel a way about automation and AI creation. And it's all, you sit there wondering whether you're too far behind now. How do you automate your emails? And it can be very scary.
It's confusing as well. I think a lot of people are really confused, are really overwhelmed. The reason I care about it so much is because in our pocket of the world, if we can't get our work to work, if we can't get our businesses and our practices to work, and by work, I mean like truly sustainable financially, energetically, emotionally, like all of these things create sustainability for me. We can't throw out our own wellness and well-being because we're entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners. Like we can't do that because we need to be leaders. We're the way showers. The quality of our work depends on so much of the stuff that you and I talked about already today. Like we need to be able to hold those spaces ourselves to be able to do the work. And so we can't throw out our own wellness, our own well-being just because we're businesses. So, the way I see it, like our work working, businesses and practices working in our industry is vital to this global dark night of the soul, like us all coming through the scary times that we're in. And if our work and these businesses don't work, it's not just, oh, another business that doesn't work. Oh, I'll just go try something else. This is our life path. This is our life work. This is like an expression of who we be. It's an expression of our soul. It's our karma. It's our dharma. It's such a big thing, not only to us as individuals, but also to the people that we're on this earth to help, to guide, to be way showers for. If we can't get our work to work, then we can't find them and they can't find us. And there's a huge cost to that. I don't even know if it's possible to put words to the cost that there is to that.
I think a lot of the work I'm doing right now is based around increasing my capacity for things, increasing my capacity to do the work, increasing my capacity to hold my energy, and I think that has to be my first, to match my energy to where I need to be before I go out. And I've felt a little lacking at the beginning of this year. And then I've had some one-to-one sessions with my coach. And so we've started working on increasing my capacity to hold. What can I hold? And that's another layer, as you say, another layer of work.
Last thing I'm going to ask you before we wrap up today. If you could have a magic wand and have one thing solved or fixed for you in your business building journey, what would it be?
I think it would be back office systems, like I was saying, increasing my level of understanding in those things, automation, funnels, those messaging flows, that sort of thing, increasing my conversations, my sales conversations, getting better at that, which would afford me some more comfort in that area, because I'm very comfortable delivering my work, being with clients and speaking to them about their issues. It's all the salesy stuff that doesn't feel as much as like service.
Christine, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place. Please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Christine directly, the link to her Facebook page is in the show note. Thank you again, Christine. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.